The great meeting room of the Galactic Council was huge. It stretched for miles and miles, made of shiny crystal that sparkled like diamonds. The walls hummed with the sound of voices being translated into hundreds of different languages. 200 alien species sat in the round chamber, their strange shapes and colors making it look like a rainbow of creatures from every corner of the galaxy. At the center of it all sat Ambassador Jake Morrison. He was a tall human with gray hair and tired eyes. His hands were folded on the table in front of him, and he tried to keep his face calm as he listened to the Zephyrian speaker. The Zephyrian looked like a giant metal spider with too many legs, and eyes that glowed red. The human species must give up their warships. The Zephyrian clicked through his translator machine. They must let us watch over them. Humans are too dangerous. They grow too fast and want too much. They threaten the peace of 17 star systems. Jake felt his jaw tighten. Next to him, Commander Lisa Brooks leaned close and whispered in his ear. She was a smart woman who had been helping Jake for 3 years. Her whisper was urgent and worried. "Sir, they're not going to change their minds. They want us to become their slaves." The other humans at the table looked just as angry. Captain Danny Rodriguez was a tough man from the space fleet. His dark eyes were full of rage as he watched the aliens make their demands. Dr. Helen Carter was a scientist who had spent her whole life studying the stars. Now she looked like she wanted to throw her papers at the alien speakers. General Paul Stevens was an old soldier who had fought in many battles. His weathered face was stone cold as he listened to the insults. For 3 long months, the humans had sat in this room. Every day brought new accusations and new demands. The older alien species looked at humans like they were children who needed to be controlled. Said humans were too young, too wild, too dangerous to be trusted with their own freedom. The problem was simple. Humans had done in 50 years what most alien species took thousands of years to do. They had built faster ships, better weapons, and stronger cities. They had spread across the galaxy like wildfire, setting up colonies and trading posts on dozens of worlds. The older aliens were scared and jealous. Ambassador Morrison boomed a voice from across the chamber. It belonged to the Alterian Chancellor, a creature that looked like a floating jellyfish made of purple light. "Your species has exactly 72 hours to agree to our terms. If you refuse, we will place trade blocks around your worlds. We will send our armies to force you to obey." Jake stood up slowly. He was 6 feet tall, which made him one of the smaller creatures in the room. But something about the way he moved made every alien eye turn to him. The chamber fell silent. Even the humming of the translator machine seemed to quiet down. Jake looked around the huge room, saw hundreds of alien faces staring back at him. Some looked curious, like they were watching an interesting show. Others looked angry, like they wanted to see humans punished for daring to be different. Most just looked bored, like they didn't care what happened to the human race. "We came here in peace," Jake said. His voice was not loud, but it carried clearly through the chamber. "We offered to share our knowledge and our trade. We wanted to be friends and partners. Instead, you have treated us like criminals. You have insulted us and threatened us just because we are different, just because we are human." The aliens began to murmur among themselves. Some of them had never heard a human speak with such strength before. They were used to seeing humans beg and plead for acceptance. Jake picked up his papers and folders. He nodded to his team. "The United Earth Federation will no longer take part in these talks. We will not accept your demands. We will not let you control our lives or our worlds." Commander Brooks stood up next to him. She was scared, but she was also proud. For months, she had watched the aliens treat humans like dirt. Now finally, someone was standing up to them. Captain Rodriguez pushed back his chair and stood. His hand moved to his sidearm, a habit from his military training. He was ready to fight if needed. Dr. Carter gathered her scientific reports. She had spent weeks preparing data to show the aliens that humans were peaceful and helpful. She realized it had all been a waste of time. Aliens had already made up their minds. General Stevens stood last. He was the oldest human in the room, and he had seen many battles. He looked at the aliens with the eyes of a soldier who knows a fight is coming. We will not submit to your rule, Jake continued. We will not give up our ships or our freedom. Humanity will make its own path among the stars. The chamber exploded in sound. Aliens began screeching, clicking, and buzzing in their own languages. The translator machines could barely keep up with all the angry voices. Some aliens stood up from their seats, waving arms or tentacles or wings. Others began glowing with bright colors, which meant they were very upset. The Zephyrian speaker's red eyes flashed brighter. You cannot defy the will of the Council. We have ruled this galaxy for 10,000 years. Then maybe it's time for a change, Jake replied. The human team began walking toward the exit. Their footsteps echoed in the huge chamber, making a steady rhythm like a drum beat. Behind them, the aliens were still shouting and arguing.
Some
Were demanding that the humans be arrested right away. Others were calling for immediate war. As they reached the great doors, Jake turned back one last time. He looked at the chaos they were leaving behind. For a moment, he wondered if he was making the right choice. Then he thought about Earth, about the human colonies, about all the men and women who had fought and died for human freedom. This is just the beginning, he said to his team as they walked through the doors. Outside the chamber, the space station was busy with aliens from all over the galaxy. They stared at the humans as they passed. Some looked confused, others looked angry. A few looked almost impressed that anyone would dare to challenge the Council. Commander Brooks walked beside Jake. Sir, what do we do now? Now we go home, Jake said. We tell our people what happened here. We prepare for what's coming. What's coming? Asked Dr. Carter. Jake looked out through a window at the stars. Mess somewhere out there was Earth. Blue world where humanity had been born. Somewhere out there were the human colonies, full of people who just wanted to live their lives in peace. War, he said simply. They'll never let us go without a fight. They can't allow other species to see that the Council can be defied. General Stevens nodded. Then we'd better get ready. The galaxy is about to learn what happens when you corner a human. As their shuttle left the Council station, Jake looked back at the massive structure. It was beautiful and ancient, a symbol of power that had lasted for thousands of years. Soon it might be in ruins, but that was a choice the aliens had made, not the humans. Jake had tried to make peace. He'd offered friendship and cooperation. Instead, the aliens had chosen to see humans as a threat to be controlled. Now they would learn the difference between controlling humans and defeating them. The galaxy was about to discover that humanity's greatest strength was not their technology or their ships. It was their refusal to surrender their freedom, no matter the cost. The shuttle turned toward home, carrying the news that would change everything. The peace talks were over. The real test was just beginning. 3 days after the humans walked out of the Council meeting, the aliens struck back hard and fast. The message was clear to every species in the galaxy. No one defies the Galactic Council and gets away with it. The first punishment came in the form of trade blocks. Alien ships stopped coming to human worlds. The space routes that connected human colonies to the rest of the galaxy were suddenly empty. Cargo ships that carried food and supplies to the outer colonies found themselves turned away at alien checkpoints. On the farming world of New Kansas, Governor Bill Murphy watched the last alien freighter disappear into space. The ship had been carrying medicine that his people needed badly. Now they would have to make do with what they had. How long can we? Lass asked his assistant, Mary Jenkins. Long enough, Bill replied, though he was not sure if that was true. We've been through worse. But the trade blocks were just the beginning. The real threat came from space itself. A massive fleet of alien warships began moving toward the Sol system, toward Earth. 47 vessels from 12 different species, all armed with the most advanced weapons in the galaxy. The fleet was led by Admiral Kethfar, the same Zephyrian who had demanded human surrender at the Council meeting. His ship was a massive beast of metal and crystal, bristling with weapons that could destroy entire cities. Behind him came ships from the Alterians, the Crystalline Collective, and 9 other powerful species. The humans will learn the price of defiance, Kethfar told his fellow commanders. We will show the galaxy what happens to those who refuse to obey. But the humans were not sitting idle. Admiral Kate Wilson stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, humanity's flagship. She was a tough woman with short gray hair and eyes like steel. She had fought in the colony wars and the AI crisis. She knew how to win battles against impossible odds. Around her, the human fleet hung in space beyond Neptune. 12 ships against 47. The odds were bad, but Kate had seen worse. The human ships were smaller than the alien vessels, but they were fast and smart. They had been built by people who knew that they might have to fight the entire galaxy. "Someday, Admiral," said Communications Officer Ben Parker, "we're getting a message from the alien fleet. They want us to surrender right now." Kate smiled. It was not a nice smile. "Tell them we're busy." Her second-in-command, Commander Ryan Bell, looked worried. "Ma'am, those are some serious odds. 47 ships against 12. Maybe we should." "Think about pulling back." "Pull back to where?" Kate asked. "This is our home system. Behind us is Earth, Mars, Luna, and billions of humans. We don't have anywhere to run." She was right. The human fleet was all that stood between the aliens and the home worlds. If they failed, Earth would be at the mercy of creatures who had already shown they had no mercy to give. On Earth, President Maria Santos stood in the Emergency Command Center deep under the Rocky Mountains. The room was filled with screens showing the alien fleet moving closer. Her advisors sat around a long table, all looking worried. Defense Secretary Alex Turner was studying the tactical reports. "The aliens have us outgunned by almost 4-1. Their ships are bigger, their weapons are more powerful. But they don't know how to fight humans," said Intelligence Director Chuck Miller. "They've been at the top of the galaxy for so long. They've forgotten what real war looks like." Secretary of State Laura Hayes shook her head. "We should try to negotiate. Maybe we can find some middle ground." "There is no middle ground," Maria said firmly. "They want us to surrender our freedom. They want to control our lives and our worlds. That's not negotiation, that's conquest." She stood up and walked to the communications console. All across human space, people were watching and waiting. On Earth, on Mars, on the colonies scattered among the stars, humans were looking to her for leadership. "My fellow humans," Maria began, her voice carrying to every corner of human space, "we face a choice that will define what we are as a species. We can bow down to alien masters, or we can stand up and show the galaxy what humanity really means." The response was immediate and overwhelming. From the mining colonies around Proxima Centauri to the research stations near Wolf 359, humanity's answer came back as one voice: "We stand together." On the orbital station above Mars, Captain Tony Clark was preparing his squadron for battle. His pilots were young and scared, but they were ready to fight. They had grown up hearing stories about the old Earth wars, about humans who fought impossible battles and won. "Listen up," Tony told his pilots. "The aliens think they know us. They think we're just another species they can push around. Today, we're going to show them they're wrong." His wingman, Lieutenant Scott Davis, raised his hand. "Sir, what if we lose?" Tony looked at the young pilot. Scott was barely 21, fresh from the academy. He had never seen real combat. We lose fighting," Tony said. "But we're not going to lose. You know why? Because we're human. We don't give up. We don't surrender. We find a way to win." The alien fleet reached the outer edges of the solar system. Admiral was confident. His ships were the finest in the galaxy. His weapons could punch through any defense. He had fought dozens of battles against rebellious species, and he had never lost. "Begin the attack," he ordered. "Target their orbital stations first. Show them what happens to those who defy the Council." The first battle began near Jupiter. The alien fleet came in formation, their ships lined up like they were on parade. It was the way battles had been fought in the galaxy for thousands of years: clean, orderly, predictable. But the humans did not fight like other species. Instead of meeting the aliens head-on, they scattered. The 12 human ships split up and attacked from different directions. Some came from above, some from below, some from the sides. They moved like a pack of wolves, hitting hard and fast, then disappearing before the aliens could strike back. Captain Roy Johnson commanded a small ship called the Swift Strike. He led his crew into the heart of the alien formation, his weapons blazing. They hit an alien supply ship, crippling it, then vanished into the asteroid belt before the escort ships could respond. "This is impossible," Admiral Kethvar said to his officers. "They're attacking from 17 different directions at once. How can they coordinate such chaos?" The answer was simple. Humans had been fighting each other for thousands of years. They had learned to be unpredictable, to use speed and surprise instead of just brute force. While the aliens fought by the rules, humans made up new rules as they went along. The battle raged for hours. The aliens had more ships and bigger guns, but the humans had something else. They had nothing to lose. Every human pilot knew that behind them was Earth, was home, was everything they cared about. Lieutenant Sarah Johnson was flying her fighter through a cloud of debris when she saw her. Chance. An alien battleship had separated from the main fleet, trying to chase down one of the human ships. Sarah dove toward it, her small fighter. Almost invisible against the dark of space, she fired her missiles at the alien ship's engines. The explosions lit up space like a new star. The battleship began to spin out of control, its crew screaming in their alien language. "Target down," Sarah reported, moving to next objective. All across the solar system, similar scenes played out. Human ships appeared from nowhere, struck like lightning, then vanished. The aliens found themselves fighting shadows, chasing ghosts. By the end of the first day, 3 alien ships had been destroyed and 5 more were badly damaged. The humans had lost 1 fighter, but the pilot had escaped in his emergency pod. Admiral Kethvar stared at his tactical display in disbelief. His superior fleet was being torn apart by a handful of human ships. It was impossible, but it was happening. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "we're getting messages from the Council. They want to know why we haven't won yet." Kethvar's metal face darkened. "Tell them that humans fight differently than other species. Tell them that this will take more time." But deep down, he was beginning to wonder if time would be enough. The humans were not just fighting for territory or resources. They were fighting for their freedom, their homes, their very existence, and that, he was starting to realize, made them more dangerous than any weapon in the galaxy. The first battle was over, but the war was just beginning. The aliens had learned that humans would not surrender easily. Soon they would learn that humans would not surrender at all. The aliens had made a big mistake. They thought they understood humans because they had studied their technology and their ships. But they had never bothered to study the most important thing about humans: how they think. Colonel Sam Davis sat in a secret bunker on Luna, surrounded by screens and computers. He was the head of human intelligence, and for the past 3 months, while the diplomats had been talking, he had been working. His job was to learn everything he could about the aliens who wanted to destroy humanity. His team of analysts worked around the clock. Dr. Amy Foster was a brilliant scientist who could look at alien technology and figure out how it worked. Major Tony Clark was a military expert who understood how different species fought their wars. Together, they had been building a picture of the enemy that most humans had never seen. "The Zephyrians are strong, but they have a weakness," Amy reported to the War Council. "They can't fight well in high gravity. Their metal bodies are too heavy. If we can force them to fight near a planet or a large moon, they'll be slow and clumsy." "What about the Alterians?" asked Admiral Wilson, who had come to Luna to hear the intelligence reports. "Their ships are powerful but slow," Tony explained. "They're like flying fortresses. They can take a lot of damage, but they can't turn quickly. If we can get behind them or beside them, they can't bring their main guns to bear." Sam Davis stood up and walked to the main screen. It showed a map of the galaxy with different colored dots, representing different alien species. The Crystalline Collective has ships that are almost impossible to destroy, but they have limited range. They can't stay in battle for very long without returning to their base ships to recharge. "And their biggest weakness?" Admiral Wilson asked. Sam smiled grimly. "They've never fought anyone like us. For thousands of years, they've been used to enemies who fight by the rules, species that line up their ships in neat formations and shoot at each other until one side gives up. They have no idea how to handle humans who refuse to play by their rules. This was the truth that would change everything. The aliens were powerful, but they were also predictable. They had been at the top of the galaxy for so long that they had forgotten what real war looked like. They had forgotten that sometimes the smaller, weaker opponent could win by being smarter, faster, and more willing to take risks. The first proof of this came near Jupiter's moons. A large alien supply convoy was bringing weapons and fuel to the main fleet. The convoy was protected by 6 escort ships, each one larger and more powerful than anything the humans had. Captain Roy Johnson was given the mission to stop the convoy. His ship, the Swift Strike, was small and fast, but it was just one ship against 7. Any sane person would have said the mission was impossible. But Roy was not just any person. He was human. Humans had been doing impossible things for their entire history. "Here's the plan," Roy told his crew. "We're going to use the asteroid belt as cover. We'll hit them fast, damage their engines, then disappear before they can shoot back." His weapons officer, Lieutenant Mike Turner, looked worried. "Sir, even if we damage a few ships, there will still be others. They'll hunt us down. Not if we're smarter than they are," Roy replied. "The asteroids are full of metal, or there. Sensors won't be able to track us properly. We'll be like ghosts in the dark." The attack began at dawn, Jupiter time. The alien convoy was moving slowly through the asteroid field, their heavy ships careful not to hit the floating rocks. They were being cautious, which was their first mistake. Roy's ship dove out of the shadow of a large asteroid, its weapons blazing. The missiles hit the lead escort ship's engines, sending it spinning into a nearby asteroid. Before the other ships could react, the Swift Strike had vanished back into the rocky maze. "Where did they go?" demanded the convoy commander. "A crystalline being whose body was made of living crystal. Find them." But finding a small, fast ship in an asteroid field was like finding a needle in a haystack. The aliens spread out, searching frantically there. Formation breaking apart. That was their second mistake. Roy struck again, this time from a different direction. His ship appeared from behind a spinning asteroid, hit another escort ship, then disappeared again. The aliens were getting frustrated and angry. They started shooting at shadows, wasting their ammunition on empty space. "This is impossible," the convoy commander said. "One small ship cannot defeat our entire convoy." But Roy was not trying to defeat the convoy. He was trying to something much smarter. While the escort ships were chasing ghosts, he was setting up his real attack. Hidden behind a large asteroid, he had placed a series of mines in the convoy's path. When the supply ships tried to move forward, they ran straight into the trap. The explosions lit up the asteroid field like fireworks. 3 of the supply ships were destroyed instantly. The others were badly damaged and limping. "Mission accomplished," Roy reported to Fleet Command. "Convoy neutralized. No casualties on our side." This victory was just the beginning. All across the solar system, similar attacks were happening. Human ships appeared from nowhere, struck like lightning, then vanished. The aliens found themselves fighting an enemy they could not catch, could not predict, could not understand. Captain Lisa Brooks was leading a squadron of fighters against an alien battleship near Mars. The battleship was huge, with thick armor and powerful weapons. In a straight fight, the human fighters would have been destroyed in minutes. But Lisa did not fight straight. Instead, she split her squadron into 3 groups. One group attacked from the front, drawing the battleship's attention. The second group attacked from above, forcing the alien gunners to divide their fire. The third group, led by Lisa herself, came from below and behind, hitting the battleship's weak spots. "Their armor is strongest at the front and sides," Lisa told her pilots. "But underneath, where the engines are, they're vulnerable. Hit them." There, the attack worked perfectly. The battleship's engines were damaged, leaving it drifting helplessly in space. The human fighters had won without losing a single pilot. These tactics were not accidents. They were the result of thousands of years of human warfare. On Earth, humans had fought each other in every possible way. They had learned to use terrain, weather, and surprise to defeat stronger enemies. They had developed strategies that other species had never even imagined, Admiral Kate Wilson was studying the battle reports in her command center. The numbers were impressive. In just 1 week, the humans had destroyed or damaged over 20 alien ships. They had done this while losing only 3 fighters and no major vessels. "How are we doing this?" asked her Chief of Staff Commander, Ryan Bell. "On paper, we should be losing badly." Tate smiled. "We're doing this because we're human. We think differently than they do. We see war as a formal process, like a dance with rules and steps. We see war as a problem to be solved, and we're very good at solving problems." The aliens were starting to realize this too. Admiral Kethvar was meeting with his fellow commanders in the flagship's war room. The mood was dark. What should have been an easy victory was turning into a nightmare. "The humans are using tactics we have never seen before," reported Admiral Fel Knox of the Alterian fleet. "They attack from multiple directions simultaneously. They use the environment as a weapon. They refuse to fight according to established military doctrine. They must adapt," Kethvar said. "We must learn to fight as they fight." Was easier said than done. The alien fleets had been using the same tactics for thousands of years. Their ships were designed for traditional warfare. Their officers were trained in conventional strategy. Changing everything would take time they did not have. Meanwhile, the humans were getting stronger. Word of their victories was spreading. Through human space, volunteers were coming from every colony, every station, every outpost. Young people who had never seen combat were signing up to fight for their freedom. On Earth, factories were working day and night to build new ships and weapons. The entire human economy had switched to war production. Every person was doing their part to support the war effort. Dr. Susan Wright was working in a secret laboratory on Luna. She was studying pieces of destroyed alien ships, trying to understand their technology. What she found would change everything. "They're faster than light engines, are more advanced than ours," she told the research team. "But they're also more complicated. They rely on complex calculations and precise timing. If we can disrupt those calculations..." She was working on a new type of weapon, one that could interfere with alien navigation systems. It would not destroy their ships, but it would make them lost and confused. A lost enemy was often more dangerous than a destroyed one, but Susan had an even bigger idea. She was working on a new type of engine for human ships, one that would make them faster and more unpredictable than anything the aliens had ever seen. "It's not just about speed," she explained to Admiral Wilson. "It's about being unpredictable. If they can't track us, they can't fight us." The war was entering a new phase. The aliens had superior numbers and firepower, but the humans had something more important. They had the will to win and the intelligence to find a way. The galaxy was about to learn that the most dangerous enemy was not the strongest, but the smartest, and humans were very, very smart. News of the human victory spread across the galaxy like wildfire. On worlds that had been under council control for thousands of years, people were talking in whispers about the small species that had dared to fight back. For the first time in centuries, someone was standing up to the Galactic Council and winning. Ambassador Eve Roberts sat in her office on the neutral world of Kepler-4 Fortuby. She was the human representative to the independent systems. It's the worlds that had managed to stay out of council control. For years, her job had been quiet and boring. Most species ignored humans completely. Now her communication device was ringing every few minutes. "Ambassador," said her aide, "Lieutenant Jack Stone, the hegemony of Tau Ceti, wants to meet with you. They're asking about trade agreements and mutual defense pacts." Eve looked up from her desk in surprise. The Tau Ceti hegemony was a powerful group of worlds that had always been neutral. They had never shown any interest in humans before. "What else?" she asked. The Orion Confederacy sent a message asking about military alliances. The Ethereal Collective wants to discuss technology sharing. Even the Silent Ones of Vega are asking for a meeting, and they haven't talked to anyone in 50 years. Eve leaned back in her chair. This was incredible. Half the galaxy seemed to be waking up to the fact that the Council could be challenged. The human victories were giving hope to species that had given up hope long ago. But the war was far from over. In fact, it was getting worse. The Council, desperate to maintain their authority, had decided to use their most terrible weapons. They would show the galaxy what happened to species that defied them. The attack came without warning. The human colony at Wolf 359 was a peaceful world with 2 million people. Most of them were farmers and scientists. They had no military defenses, no weapons of war. They were just ordinary people trying to build a new life among the stars. Council fleet arrived in the middle of the night. Admiral Kethvar had been ordered to make an example of the colony. He was to show the galaxy that the Council would not hesitate to destroy entire worlds to maintain order. "Begin orbital bombardment," he ordered. "Target the cities first." The energy beams came down from space like the fire of angry gods. They turned buildings into ash and people into memories. In 6 hours, the beautiful colony world of Wolf 359 was a smoking ruin. 2 million humans were dead. The news reached Earth within hours. President Maria Santos stood in the emergency command center, staring at the images on the screen. Entire cities had been wiped out. Families had been destroyed. Children had been killed in their sleep. "This is a war crime," said Secretary of State Laura Hayes. Her voice was shaking with anger and grief. "This is war," replied Defense Secretary Alex Turner. "And now every human in the galaxy knows what we're fighting for. We're fighting for our right to exist." The destruction of Wolf 359 did not break human spirit. Instead, it made humans more determined than ever. All across human space, people were volunteering to fight. Even old people and teenagers were asking to join the military. Commander Nick Taylor was defending the mining colony at Proxima Centauri when he heard about Wolf 359. He was a tough man who had served in 3 wars, but the news brought tears to his eyes. He had friends on Wolf 359. He had visited that world many times that night. He made a recording that would become famous throughout human space. He stood in front of his damaged fighter, his face covered with soot and blood, and spoke directly. "To the camera, they think they can break us by killing our civilians," he said. "They think they can make us surrender by destroying our homes. They're wrong. They can burn our cities, but they cannot burn our spirit. They can kill our bodies, but they cannot kill our ideas. We are human, and humans do not surrender. We do not give up. We fight until the end, and then we fight some more. Da 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 da." Recording was broadcast on every human world and station. It became a rallying cry for the entire species. Humans who had been thinking about giving up changed their minds. Humans who had been scared found their courage. But the most important change was happening in the secret. Laboratories and research stations. Dr. Susan Wright had been working day and night on her new engine design. The breakthrough came 3 days after the attack on Wolf 359. "I've got it," she told Admiral Wilson over the secure communication link. "The new drive system is ready for testing." The new engine was unlike anything that had ever been built before. It did not just make ships faster, it made them unpredictable. A ship with the new engine could appear anywhere in space without warning. It could change direction in ways that broke all the known laws of physics. "How does it work?" Admiral Wilson asked. "I combined alien technology with human engineering," Susan explained. "The aliens build everything to be perfect and precise. We build things to be flexible and adaptable. When you combine the 2 approaches, you get something neither side could have created alone." The first test was conducted in secret, far from Earth, Captain Roy Johnson's ship. The Swift Strike was fitted with the new engine. When he activated it, the ship simply vanished. One moment it was there, the next moment it was gone. Even the most advanced sensors could not track it. "This changes everything," Roy reported. "With this engine, we can be anywhere, anytime. The aliens will never see us coming." Production of the new engines began immediately. Every human ship in the fleet would be upgraded. But the engines were not the only new technology being developed. Dr. Amy Foster had been working on new weapons based on alien technology. She had discovered that the crystalline collective ships, which seemed indestructible, actually had a fatal weakness. Their crystal hulls could be shattered by specific sound frequencies. It's like breaking a wine glass with a high note, she explained to the weapons team. If we can generate the right frequency, their ships will tear themselves apart. Major Tony Clark had developed new tactics based on the engine technology. Human ships could now attack from impossible angles, appear behind enemy lines, and disappear. Before the aliens could respond, "We're not just fighting a war anymore," he told his officers. "We're rewriting the rules of space combat." Aliens were starting to panic. Admiral Kethvar called an emergency meeting of all Council fleet commanders. The war that should have been over in days had been going on for weeks, and the humans were getting stronger instead of weaker. "How many ships have we lost?" he asked. His intelligence officer, 37, destroyed, 24 badly damaged, came the reply. "The humans have lost only 8 ships total." "This is impossible," said Admiral Felnox. "Our technology is superior. Our numbers are greater."
Ow.
"Are we losing to these primitives?" "Because they are not primitives," said a new voice. Everyone turned to see Admiral Vexquin of the Ethereal Collective. She was a being of pure energy, her form shifting and glowing in the dim light of the meeting room. "Explain," demanded Kethvar. "Have been studying human tactics and technology," Vexquin said. "They do not fight like other species. They adapt constantly. They learn from every battle. They take our own technology and improve it in ways we never imagined." "Then how do we defeat them?" asked Felin. Ox Vexquin was quiet for a long moment. "I am not certain we can," she finally said. "At least not in the way we have been trying." Meanwhile, the human resistance was spreading beyond Earth's solar system. On worlds throughout the galaxy, species that had been oppressed by the Council were beginning to rebel. The humans had shown that the Council could be fought and beaten. On the world of Kepler 186f, the native Verdani people rose up against their Council overseers. They had been enslaved for 300 years, forced to mine rare crystals for the Council's war machine. Now, they saw their chance for freedom. "The humans showed us the way," said clan leader Morden to his warriors. "If a young species can defeat the Council's fleets, then we can defeat their guards." The rebellion succeeded. Within days, the Verdani had driven the Council forces off their world. They sent a message to Ambassador Eve Roberts asking to join. The Human Alliance similar uprisings were happening on dozens of worlds. The Council's empire, which had seemed unshakable for thousands of years, was beginning to crack. The cracks were small at first, but they were growing. Back on Earth, President Maria Santos was meeting with her war council. The reports were encouraging, but she knew the real test was still coming. The Council would not give up easily. They would throw everything they had at humanity before admitting defeat. "Are we ready for their final attack?" she asked Admiral Wilson. "As ready as we can be," the Admiral replied. "Our new ships are faster and more powerful than anything they have. Our pilots are the best in the galaxy. Our people are united like never before. And if we lose..." Admiral Wilson looked at the President with steady eyes. "Then we lose fighting. But we're not going to lose. The galaxy is changing, and we're the ones changing it. The age of Council domination is ending. The age of freedom is beginning." Inside the command center, the stars shone down on Earth like distant promises. Somewhere among those stars, human ships were fighting for the future. Of all free peoples, the battle was not over, but for the first time since the war began, victory seemed possible. The galaxy was learning that sometimes the smallest voice could speak the loudest truth, that freedom was worth any price, that courage could overcome any odds. The end of the war came not with a massive battle, but with a simple realization. The Galactic Council, facing rebellions on dozens of worlds and unable to defeat the human military, found themselves in a position they had never experienced before. They were losing. Admiral Kethvar stood on the bridge of his flagship, staring at the tactical display. Red markers showed Council fleets under attack across 17 star systems. Blue markers showed human ships appearing and disappearing like ghosts. Green markers showed rebellions on worlds that had been peaceful for centuries. "Sir, his communications?" Officer reported. "We have lost contact with the garrison at Kepler 186f. The native population has overthrown our forces." "And the fleet at Wolf 359?" Kethvar asked. Destroyed? Humans used their new ships to attack from 6 directions at once? Our ships never had a chance to return fire. Kethvar's metal face showed no emotion, but inside he was beginning to understand what his superiors refused to accept. The war was over. The council had lost. The only question now was whether they would admit it or let the galaxy burn trying to maintain their power. The message came 3 days later. The council wanted to negotiate. They were willing to discuss terms with the humans. That was the first time in galactic history that the council had asked for peace talks with the species they were at war with. The meeting took place on Harmony Station. Orbiting the gas giant Kepler 438b, the station was neutral territory controlled by the Independent, worlds that had stayed out of the war. Ambassador Jake Morrison, the man who had walked out of the council chambers months ago, now returned as humanity's chief negotiator. The council delegation looked very different than before. Gone was the arrogant certainty that had marked their earlier demands. The alien representatives sat quietly, their body language showing defeat and frustration. Admiral Kethvar was there, his red eyes dimmer than before. Admiral Felnox of the Altarians looked like his purple glow had faded. Even the crystalline collective's representatives seemed less bright and shiny. The terms are simple, Jake said, his voice calm but firm. Humanity withdraws from all council territories that we currently occupy. In exchange, we establish our own sphere of influence, and any species that wishes to join us may do so freely. The Zephyrian delegate shifted uncomfortably. And what guarantee do we have that humans will not seek to conquer and dominate others, as we tried to do to you? President Maria Santos, who had come to represent Earth personally, stood to address the assembly. She was older now, marked by months of war. But her voice carried the authority of a leader who had seen her people through their darkest hour. Because that is not who we are, she said. We believe in freedom. We believe that every species has the right to choose their own path. We offer partnership, not domination. We offer friendship, not slavery. The negotiations took 3 weeks. The final agreement, known as the Harmony Accords, created a new structure for galactic civilization. The old council would maintain control over their core territories, but their power would be limited. They could no longer force other species to join them or follow their laws. The human alliance would control a large section of space around Earth and the human colonies. But more importantly, any species that wanted to leave council space and join the alliance would be free to do so. 20-6 species signed the accords that first day. Within a year, that number had grown to 53. The galaxy was divided. But it was divided by choice, rather than force. Captain Roy Johnson stood on the observation deck of the newly built space station Liberty. The station hung in space at the border between Alliance and Council territory, a symbol of the new order. Through the transparent aluminum windows, he could see ships from 30 different species working together to build something that had never existed before, a truly free civilization. His daughter, Lieutenant Sarah Johnson, joined him at the viewport. She was fresh from the academy, wearing the uniform of the Alliance Space Force. Her eyes were bright with the optimism of someone who had grown up in a galaxy where freedom was possible. "Do you think it will last?" she asked her father. Roy smiled, thinking about the long road that had brought them here. Nothing lasts forever, but this is better than what came before. And when it changes, hopefully it will change into something even better. Below them, the station's central hub was bustling with activity. Humans worked alongside Verdani miners, Tau Ceti engineers, and dozens of other species. Children from different worlds played together in the recreational areas, their laughter echoing through the corridors. Dr. Susan Wright was in her new laboratory, working on the next generation of space travel technology. The war had ended, but human curiosity and innovation had not. She was developing engines that would take ships to other galaxies beyond the reach of any single government or council. "The universe is infinite," she told her research team. "There's room out there for every species to find their own way, their own worlds, their own future. On Earth, monuments were being built to remember the cost of freedom. The Wolf 359 Memorial honored the 2 million civilians who had died in the Council's attack. Their names were carved in black stone, a reminder that liberty was not free, but there were also celebrations. The Independence Day festival had become a galaxy-wide holiday. On hundreds of worlds, beings of every description gathered to celebrate the day that the Galactic Council's monopoly on power had been broken. Ambassador Eve Roberts had a new job now. She was the Alliance's chief diplomat, responsible for welcoming new species into the Alliance and negotiating with those who chose to remain neutral. Her office was constantly busy with representatives from worlds that wanted to learn about this new way of organizing galactic society. The key, she told a group of young diplomats, is that we never try to force anyone to join us. Freedom means the right to choose, including the right to choose differently than we would choose. The former Council worlds were struggling with their new reality. Some had embraced the changes, allowing their citizens more freedom and representation. Others had become more rigid and oppressive, trying to hold on to power through fear. Admiral Kethfar had retired from military service. He now taught strategy at the Zephyrian War College, trying to help the next generation understand the lessons of the human war. We failed, he told his students, because we confused strength with wisdom. We had the most powerful ships, the most advanced weapons, the largest armies. But we had forgotten the most important truth about war, the side that wants victory most usually gets it. And the humans wanted freedom more than we wanted control. The Alliance was not perfect. There were disputes between member species, disagreements about policy, and occasional conflicts. But these were settled through negotiation and compromise. Rather than force, the Alliance Parliament met on Liberty Station every year. Representatives from all member worlds gathered to discuss common problems and make decisions that affected everyone. It was messy and sometimes frustrating, but it was democratic. Democracy is the worst form of government, President Santos said in her farewell address, except for all the others. It's not perfect, but it's honest. It admits that no one has all the answers, and it lets everyone participate in finding solutions. The human colonies continued to expand, but now they were joined by colonies from other Alliance species. Mixed worlds became common, where different species lived and worked together. The diversity created new problems, but it also created new possibilities. Captain Lisa Brooks, now commanding the exploration ship Horizon, was leading the first joint species mission to the Andromeda Galaxy. Her crew included humans, Verdani, Tau Setians, and members of 8 other species. This is what we fought for, she told her mixed crew as they prepared for the long journey. Not just human freedom, but the freedom for all of us to reach for. The stars together. Back on Earth, children learned about the war in their history classes. They studied the battles, the heroes, and the mistakes that both sides had made. But most importantly, they learned why the war had been necessary. Sometimes their teachers told them you have to fight for what's right, not because you want to fight, but because some things are worth any sacrifice. Freedom is one of those things. The galaxy had changed. The age of unchallenged council rule was over. In its place was something messier, but more honest. A galaxy where different species could choose different paths, where no single government could control everyone, where freedom was possible for those brave enough to claim it, and in the deep reaches of space. Human exploration ships continued their journey outward, carrying with them not conquest, but hope. Hope that somewhere among the infinite stars, other species would join them in building a future worthy of all. Intelligent life. The withdrawal from the peace talks had been just the beginning. Humanity had not just won their freedom. They had shown the galaxy a better way to live among the stars.